So Vishal, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But
thank you.
You're most welcome. It's great to have you on the show. Vishal, before we move into the future, can you maybe tell us a little bit about your own background? Where did you grow up?
Of course. I grew up in Durban, in an Indian township called Chatsworth. I grew up and studied in KZN in South Africa, and then moved around the country up to Pretoria. Worked for the CSIR there for a number of years. I was a bursary student of the CSIR, and then got into consulting engineering thereafter, and have been in consulting for almost 28, 29 years now. Worked a lot in South Africa, but also over the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years, worked a lot across Africa, where my real passion lies, and have worked a lot internationally within the organization that I work within now. Yeah, I'm a product of all of those experiences, the person sitting before you today.
Right. And Vishal, can you tell us what was your dream career when you grew up?
Interesting question. When I was in high school, I had a bit of a big mouth. So I used to talk a hell of a lot in English and so on. And a lot of my colleagues in school, this is in the apartheid days, so this was a bit of a way out suggestion, often said to me, I do very good in politics or in some sort of forum where I would do a lot of talking. So when I was in school, I wanted to do journalism because I felt that would give me that medium to communicate a bit more. And as it turns out, when I was in matric or in grade 12, I happened to talk to a couple of colleagues, including family, who pointed me in the direction of engineering. And once the career opened itself up to me, that made my mind up, and I've stayed true to that path ever since.
And Vishal, who inspired you in your early days?
Lots of people, Doc. Obviously, you can think about teachers, mentors, those kind of people back in school. I found high school an enriching, enlightening experience. So I was certainly supported by being allowed to be myself back in the day. My dad and my mom and my family obviously was a source of huge inspiration, and still is today, but source of huge inspiration about motivation and hard work and perseverance. And then going into university, meeting a lot of industry leaders, or hearing about people that came through university and in engineering and then went on to become people of stature in the industry, as well as growing up in Chatsworth, learning about the struggle stalwarts, struggle icons, a few people who were in the area, and just imbibing some of that history and that energy gave me a purpose, and made me realize that there was more to life than just buying cars and spending money and being flashy.
Right.
It put me on that path. And then through my career, there have been many people who technically have been strong mentors to me, but also professionally. And that has continued to today. I still have people I talk to regularly who give me sound advice and sometimes tell me what I'm doing wrong, which I need to hear so that I realign myself and put myself on the right path. So a number of mentors, and I've spoken in the past about small incidents where a mentor comes in your life for a short period of time, but they actually have a lasting impact because of what they've done, what they've said, often without even realizing it, which has put you on a different path, and which then gets you to where you need to be. So a number of people, Doc.
So Vishal, talking about different paths in your career, looking back over your career, is there a turning point or maybe a number of turning points?
I would think so. I mean, it's very interesting, that question, because there's not one seminal moment that I can point to that changed everything for me. But there's lots of little moments. I think everyone has that experience. Little nudges that you only realize in hindsight was the nudge in the right direction. Certainly, I was a very active sportsman in my school days and university. I was always the captain of the team, or always aspired to that. Certainly, people looked up to me that way, even if I didn't have the title. And many people said to me, going through those experiences, that you seem to naturally have an affinity to get people to follow you. So, you should find a career or a career path that allows that to continue to grow and develop. And I found that through my schooling, university career, and then into employment. But I think the major shift for me, when I actually realized that I needed to be more than just what I thought, what I believed in the past I wanted to be, was making a move up to Johannesburg from Durban, long time ago now, and then taking a very senior role, even though the role wasn't necessarily well defined at the time, because that has put me on the path to where I am today, more than any other moment in my life. And not leaving the country. I had plenty of opportunities to leave the country and go and work in the Middle East and Dubai and so on. There was always something that made me not take that move or make that decision. When I look back now, those were moments that actually shaped me into what I am. Not saying yes, saying
Right.
no, actually helped me get to where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the moments. Yeah.
Thank you. And Vishal, what would you say is driving you today?
Well, Doc, just tell you a little bit about where I am today in life. I mean, I am the managing director of a consulting company in South Africa. It's called Piesold, Southern Africa. We're 103 years old. We're the oldest consulting engineering company in South Africa and one of the oldest on the continent. But we're also an international firm. So, it's a big source of pride for me and all of my fellow employees of this organization. But what really drives me is the pursuit of excellence more than anything else, and the driving of what we call of African excellence across the continent. We exist in an industry where there's a lot of international players who've come in and bought local companies. And that has had consequences over time in South Africa, where talent has left the industry or work on projects, even though they sit here, that are international and not local. But it's also had consequences for the mindsets of people in places like the DRC, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, about the competency that exists in those local countries. And what really drives me is changing that landscape and actually bringing the concept of the fact that the excellence you seek sits right here at home, and this excellence is actually being exported all over the world. That really drives and motivates me and my organization. And I think we see that fuel as something that is infinite, but also something that can develop great success and allow us to have great consequential success on the environment and the communities around us. So it's a big driving force in my life right now. And also the concept of Ubuntu-centered leadership. It's so amazing, Doc. Whenever I travel through countries in Africa, the concept of Ubuntu exists everywhere in Africa. It's called different things, but it's such a powerful concept that it really drives a lot of the sense of community, but also the sense of building our own excellence that we seek instead of trying to import it all the time, because we have the capability, we have the talent, and we also have the opportunity and the projects. We just don't put those dots together often enough. So those things really drive my passion and fuel my motivation.
Thank you. Now, Vishal, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Yes, big question. I'm sure you've got many answers to this over time. It's very similar to what I just said to you, Doc. I truly believe in Ubuntu-centered leadership as a leadership paradigm that can deal with a lot of the challenges that capitalism brings, a lot of the challenges that history has shown us that we've struggled to deal with, not just in our part of the world, but you just look internationally now, what's happening with wars and geopolitical tensions all over the world. I really believe the future of leadership lies in understanding how the sum of the parts fit together and how the consequences of action in this point affects actions in that point, and understanding how we can bring that together so we achieve the kind of impacts that we seek equally, depending on where it is. And Ubuntu-centered leadership for me really is where the future of leadership lies, both in this part of the world, but also internationally. And I don't care what people want to call it. They can call it whatever they want. But the concept of I am because we are, or I am because you are, those concepts are so real and so simple, but so powerful in implementation. They can really cut through a lot of the noise and cut through a lot of the tension that exists when people are competing. And when you actually realize that we're all in this together, even if some are at different stations in life than others, I think we can deal with a lot of the challenges that people at my level or people higher than I sit in terms of leadership levels have to deal with on a daily basis. So that's what I believe the future of leadership is.
Thank you. And Vishal, what is it that we have to do to develop more future leaders? In other words, how do we need to go about developing, identifying, and elevating future leaders?
Yeah, it's such an important job, but such a difficult one. I used to struggle with this a lot because I always thought you follow the traditional model, you identify successes, you identify talent, you look for the ones that stand out, and then you bring everyone together and hope it all works out. But the more as I've gone on, the more I've realized is that that exists in everybody, actually. That level of leadership exists in everybody. And it's really about understanding the self and understanding the individual and not trying to pigeonhole individuals into roles, but trying to understand where the individual's true strength lies and trying to help them become the best versions of themselves. But under this broad umbrella of everyone buying into a common vision and a common concept of what we're trying to achieve. Each one has their own talent, each one has their own skills, each one has their own unique ability to deal with situations, and there's no blueprint for solving solutions. There can be different ways to get to the same answer. But getting everybody to be the best versions of themselves whilst being unified under an umbrella of what we're trying to achieve, I think is the best way to develop leaders. And that's what we do in my organization. I mean, obviously, nothing is perfect. We don't get it right all the time. But I think the intention is more important necessarily than measuring the result. And, doing it that way develops, I think, more leaders than trying to follow the traditional Western concept of doing it.
Now, Vishal, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter and hopefully overcome in their career?
Yeah, Doc, you're not asking easy questions, are you? Well, look, I think the biggest challenge anyone has, irrespective of the external environment, and I'm talking the internal challenge, the biggest challenge anyone has is actually realizing who they really are, what really drives their value system. That's the biggest challenge. When you don't have a moral compass, when you don't have a line that you won't cross, you will be jumping from the pot to the frying pan and back and forth. And you will be reactive to everything around you. Everything stimulates you to react. When you begin to realize what your true moral compass is and where it's pointing you, then you begin to make sense of the world around you and the chaos around you. The world is full of challenge. It's a challenge some days just getting out of bed. It's a challenge working in some parts of the world, especially Africa sometimes. It's a challenge getting paid sometimes. Clients don't want to pay you on time and act as if it's not their problem, it's your problem. There's all of those type of challenges. But when you begin to realize what drives you and what value system underpins who you are and how you react to situations, I think once you get to that point, then you begin to lay the platform for defining how you embrace and address the challenges that face you, how you deal with the chaos that is always around us, and you begin to make sense of the world, because there's only so many things within our control, right? The most important thing within our control is how we react to things, but you cannot control how you react to things until you understand what drives you and what your value system is. When you begin to understand that, then your reaction to things become much more methodical, it becomes much more palatable, but also becomes less emotional. Not that emotion is not important, but it becomes more reflecting of who you are. And people remember how you made them feel as opposed to the thing you did when you leave the room. And if you make people feel a certain way about who you are, and that you are that way consistently because it's not an act or a show, it's because of who you really are. That is the true path to leadership, I think. And people will follow somebody like that, as opposed to a person that always reads a book and then comes with a new theory, reads a book, comes with a new theory, you know. I got plenty of people like that, and I respect them, but unfortunately, that's not the most authentic style of leadership that I respond to.
Right. Now, Vishal, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are maybe one or two key skills you would want to factor in and maybe even teach?
Well, again, I think I've said this in this conversation already. I think the key skill for me as a leader is knowing yourself and understanding your value system. So a lot of introspection and a lot of self-reflection, I think, is a key building block for developing competency as an effective leader in any situation. Doesn't matter what situation you're in. If you understand that, you know who you are, and then by doing so, you stop being defined by the labels others put on you, but you start being defined by what you know you're capable of. I think that's a key fundamental. And then, as I've said already in this conversation, Doc, I think understanding the concept of African excellence or Ubuntu-centered leadership for me is very, very key. We can teach all the other skills that MBA schools teach, and you can teach people all of those things, but you can't teach sort of culture and value, and you can't teach the understanding of the whole. That you've got to get people to be inspired to get to that point. So those are building blocks of real leadership in this part of the world. I think that, well, anyway in the world, but certainly in Africa, that are going to be key for the future. I think there are various places and bodies doing that, or trying to do that, but it mustn't be seen as left field. You know, it's like you're talking about the self now, and that needs to be done by a psychologist. No. That is key part and parcel of individual leadership development. I would think those would form the key building blocks of any leadership development program in this part of the world, but also globally.
Now, Vishal, as a mentor to many future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two when you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. So in my life, I've been a lecturer, I've been a teacher, I've been a mentor to many, many people. So I've seen many of the young students that I lectured to at university who've now gone on to start their own businesses and have been phenomenally successful. And whether or not I've had a role to play in their success is very hard to say, but I know that I tried when I lectured them on whatever it was, to give them the kind of insights that I'm sharing with you now. So there are stories like that I've seen young engineers go on to become entrepreneurs, go on to develop their own businesses and create employment. But within my own business, there are many young engineers that have developed over time to become true leaders, not just within our business, but within the industry. And through that, start to create the type of culture and perception of us as engineers and as scientists and technicians and technologists that needs to be the right perception. Firstly, the self-belief and self-respect for yourself, but then also understanding the critical role you have in the marketplace and in the economy to change the future of the country to the betterment of the people in the country. And I'm talking all over Africa, not just South Africa. There are a lot of examples where sometimes I sit back and I see the people that I mentor, I work with, actually going out there and making a meaningful difference, not just talking about it, but making a meaningful difference, which is measurable through employment or through opportunities they create or through the changes in the environment that they bring. There are a lot of examples like that. And it is moments of pride from time to time that I get when I see how the downstream impact of what people are doing is so measurable. So there are plenty of examples like that. I wouldn't want to name any particular person, but there are lots of examples like that I can look back and say is a very good outcome of the interaction we've had over the past.
Thank you. Now, Vishal, looking back over your own leadership career, are there any role models of leadership that you encountered and maybe worked with that you would recommend future leaders should study and learn from?
Yes. In South Africa's history, of course, we've seen through late President Mandela, late Archbishop Tutu, in terms of how they tried to bring humanity into leadership and tried to bring the concepts of the whole into managing the self. I've taken a lot of lessons out of that personally, and a lot of learnings and inspiration out of that has helped me focus on how I need to bring that into my business. There are lots of people out there that talk about various principles and concepts in business. Simon Sinek's quite a famous South African connection individual who publishes quite widely and talks quite a bit about leadership as service and everything around that. And that to me is very key and is very closely aligned with concepts like Ubuntu and so on. So there are, but there are also a lot of people that are not published, people that are not famous, people that are not out there prominent that others can read in everyday life. I mean, I had an interaction the other day with the janitorial staff at a place that I went. And the way they did what they were doing, the pride they took in doing the work, told me so much more about understanding ethics and value, but also respect for what you're doing, because of how that little job that they're doing plays a role in the company that they're working in success, more than sitting in a lecture for 4 or 5 hours would have taught me, listening to a professor talking about, MBA 101 kind of stuff. So there are a lot of lessons like that, Doc, that I certainly pick up and learn from on a regular basis.
Thank you. Now, Vishal, where can our listeners follow you and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, thanks, Doc. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. You can search my name, Vishal Haripersad. I do a lot of commentary there. I speak about a lot of topics similar to what I've spoken to you about this morning, that are close to what I believe in, but also help me make sense of what's going on around me. I'm quite active on those platforms, and I do publish things quite widely on engineering-related subjects, but also leadership and African-based leadership. So I think that would be the best mechanism for which people to follow me and follow what I say.
Now, last but not least, Vishal, what is your message to the millions of learners out there who are looking to finish school, start a career? What are maybe 1 or 2 success principles that they should keep in mind?
I think the message I have for learners, and I've said this I do a lot of investment in schools and on STEM related, is the only guarantee of success is hard work. There is no substitute for that. So you've got to realize that there are lots of opportunities. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but you've got to walk the road to get there, and you've got to do the work. There is no shortcut. But doing the work shouldn't be seen as a chore. It is part and parcel of you developing your discipline, developing and conditioning your mind and your ability to think. But more importantly, it is getting you geared up on your path for success. Every leader that you talk to, every successful person you look up to, will always be able to tell you about the little steps they've taken over their life, including whilst at school, then at university or tertiary study, that has helped get them to where they are. There are very, very few luck stories out there, and luck doesn't last, but luck also comes to those that put in the effort. So do the hard work, put in the effort, you will attract the luck you seek, and you will set yourself up on a journey. And then, the limits, there's no limits to how far and how successful you can be. And I encourage all learners to remember that and to keep their head down and to focus hard on the future, because the future is bright. Despite what everyone says, the future is bright. There are lots of opportunities, but put yourself in the right place at the right time by doing the work.
Thank you. Vishal, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership, and for reminding us that hard work, or that luck follows hard work and not the other way around.
Correct. Thank you, Doc. It's been a good chat, and thank you for the conversation. It's been great.